street circuits and 3 closed circuits, Taupo, Manfield and Timaru, and all of a sudden we're at Ruapuna for the first round of the New Zealand Superbike Championships, and what a weekend it's been. Nothing happened on Friday, unfortunately. There was standing water on the track, so nothing at all happens. And right now, the 1-2 top 5 GP, that's what it's called, but it's now not getting infested, but it's now being infiltrated, and so it should be, by the Moto3 type 254 strokes, and we see 2 of them out in the front, Blaze Heaven and Reagan Phibbs, and Reagan got the early start, but it looks like to me he's been pipped into second place there. Indeed he has. He's on the beautiful fluorescent bike there, so a commentator's dream to spot out in there. We've got a few of them around here like this at the track. The other bikes are a little bit harder to pick, but right now we see them go over the back by through the Icom corner, and that mighty little NSF 250 Honda with Blaze Heaven just opens up and goes into the hairpin. Hello, Reagan Phibbs has a big moment there and just runs wide there. It's outbrakes himself, or maybe lost a gear or something. No, he's got a problem with that machine, and runs to the outside of the track. That's a big disappointment, and that'll be a chink in his armour for the New Zealand Superbike Championships Challenge for the 125 GP class. And as I mentioned, the 125 Grand Prix was run at the world level for many, many years, but with the 2 strokes dying off because the something about dinosaur fuel being used and all that, the 4 strokes come in and emissions and all that, and Moto3, and that's a proper genuine Moto3 bike out there in the front. The Reagan Phibbs bike is a New Zealand built one, and an absolutely outstanding development for the last 5 or 6 years. So good last year it managed to get pole position at Hampton Downs, so that's good results for Steve Bagshaw and his IMD team for over the years. So it's frame made by Scotty Griffiths in Palmerston North or Ashurst or thereabouts, so up in the North Island somewhere. But yesterday's man Blaze Heaven is out in the league of his own at the front down the straight there. In second place we have Zane Agate, who finished 3rd there. In 3rd place we have our screening, and Daniel Jenkins, followed by Chris Kane, John Meglin, Campbell Grayling, Chris Malcolm there, and we've got the Australian young lad, the letter T, Scott Topping, followed by Benjamin Green, Brian Hardacre, Nicky Smith on 66, Leon Jacobs, and the next 2 are DNFs or DNS, which is Reagan Phibbs and Jason Hearn. So just have the update to results from yesterday. We've got the qualifying, and indeed the qualifying, it's down to 5th place. It is exactly how it was in the first race. So qualifying's all about setting pole position and getting, and I think there's a point allocated for pole position at each round of the New Zealand Championship, and that can be vital at the end of the season, especially when you had, so in this class, you've got 12 races, you've got 3 here at Ruapuna, 3 at Timaru, 3 at Hampton Downs, and 3 at Taupo. So you can have a couple of guys that sort of shine out and have 6 wins each. Well, that pole position, just 1 point can be the decider. And right now 7 laps to go on the track. And what are we talking about in terms of lap times? Because we still call it the 125 GP, and it was discussing with me and Neil Ritchie about, do we change it with the 254 strokes coming in? Well, right now they're classed together like that, so we'll run with what's there. The quickest lap, the lap record is in 38. Wow, we're incredibly away from that at the moment for some reason. I'm looking at a 1:45 for the first lap, and of course, for some reason, it's the first lap. So we're running around in the 39.8s yesterday. What have we got now? The timing screen will come up with a little bit more information, and we're getting close to that lap record. In fact, so close to that lap record, and that is Steve Ward's lap record. The lap record is 1:38.860. That's at 1:38.951. So as Neil Ritchie said with the day, there's going to be a few lap records set. All right, I should look out on the track here, because while Blaze Heaven's disappeared in the distance, we've got a massive battle on for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. We can see that through Icon. We see in the middle of them is the red bike of Chris Kane there, but around him is Zane Agate in the front, and Daniel Jenkins. So there's the 3 bikes there coming round the hairpin. This is the minor money for the podiums, the 2, 3 and 4th position. So, and they're hammering it out. Such classic 125 racing, and there it is. Somebody goes up on the inside, and I think that's Daniel Jenkins, pokes his nose up on the inside of Chris Kane on the Fulton Hogan quarter, but Chris had the quarter speed and managed to be done. They go into the big carousel there with Blaze Heaven on the BSP Bike Sport Promotions NSF 250 coming out there, and the big fight goes on with something like 6 laps to go. Neil Ritchie just disappeared there. and was doing a radio live interview. It's great to see mainstream media taking an interest, and Motorcycling New Zealand setting up that link to do that. And of course the other thing is we've still got CTAS live running all weekend, and that's great to see them back for the full series after they weren't there at the New Zealand Superbike Championships last year. But they're back in action. Grant Collingwood doesn't have a jacket on at the moment. It's that beautiful down here. He said he had a horrible day with the wind trying to keep the camera still and all that sort of thing. He stands about 15 metres off the ground, maybe 12 metres off the ground on a scaffolding all day. We don't get to talk to him, but 16 has broken away from 6. That is Daniel Jensen, Zane Agate, who was second place yesterday. Third place yesterday there in the battle. But that battle's not over. They're coming round the Flexi-Pass corner. 1-2-5, so closely matched. You have a look at some of these guys. There's some big guys, some small guys, but the majority of them are quite diminutive, and that can be an advantage in terms of power to weight ratio. Oh, does that change of position? Daniel Jenkins drives out of that Icon corner, gets past Chris Kane into the hairpin. Chris Kane on the red bike. That's the easy one to spot of these things. So there it is, a change of position for third and fourth. And now it is Jenkins on the bike number 16. Bike number 16 trying to hunt down Zane Agate. Now, it's good to see Zane Agate back at the racetrack. He won, I think, the Superlight Championship about 3 or 4 years ago, but of course, like a lot of people, money and that, and he's a young fella growing up and employment troubles and that sort of thing, just trying to get work. But it's good to see him get back out onto the track, and a happy young kid at the racetrack, as a lot of them are. And certainly, look, he's lost none of his style. I don't know how much practice he's done, but certainly it's excellent. This race is evolving right through the centre field there. They go through the scope corner, coming up towards that mighty dipper, the famous dipper from Ruapuna that was added many years ago. This track only had 4 corners. Went down the front straight to a hairpin and come down through that little bit, and the dipper wasn't there, so they added the dipper and run 7 corners. And then, of course, about 95, I think it was, they added all that other rest of the field there. But right now, let's look at them coming onto the front straight. Neil Ritchie through the Rock FM, Avon City Ford. Who's he going to be in this bunch of people? You've been watching this race only a little bit because you're away doing that interview, but who've you got your money on, Neil?
I think it's the fact that we've got our 1-2-5s that are in flying good form out there, and looking at that Daniel Jenkins, well, I would not have picked Daniel to be in that position. Of course, we know that Blaze Heaven is in that front rank, and Regan Phipps is certainly, I suppose, where my money was at. And from a commentator's dream, Spider, as you know, to see a machine like that stands out with those colours is nice to see. But I tell you what, Daniel Jenkins, and as you showed yesterday with the times you picked up on Dennis Charlotte, that people show an improvement. It's great to see people coming more familiar with this fantastic track. We just love Ruapuna. Out of Icon, we're going down the back for those that can familiarise themselves, and I've already a good crowd of cars over by the Ruapuna Speedway as we go into Euromark corner. Lovely, the tightest of all the hairpins here. Then there's sort of 3 of them here, but they all have quite different angles, and the way they pitch in and then come out of them and exit, they're all quite different. And that one at Euromark, certainly the tightest of them all, and bears a resemblance to the likes of the infield at Manfield. Probably not as quite as, well, no, I'd say tighter than maybe the corkscrew at Hampton Downs, and even Taupo, of course, with its little...
Oh, look at that. I think Daniel Jenkins is down.
That's 2, I think, isn't it?
No, it's only the one, but he is upright. Well, the important thing, out of the Flexi-Pass corner, he is upright. But loses the front end, and that's handed it to Zane Agate, yes, and Chris Kane. You're already talking Swahili at this time of the day, so a big move there, a big moment there, and Lux lost his front end. He was lucky it was a back end. He might have ended up taking those other 2 guys out. He was out in the front of those, so dramas. That's 2 of the top 4 riders that have had a DNF so far in this race. Of course, Regan Phibbs unfortunately parked up on the infield, and now Daniel Jenkins. Now, looking at the lap times here, and we were so close to the lap record. One wonders what's happening in the pit lane there with pit indications from the BSP, whether they're hunting, well, of course they're hunting race wins and, of course, reliability of the bike. So the old story is you win the race by the smallest possible margin.
And there you go with Chris Kane. Chris Kane's just taken its Spider change there for the position out at the moment. Chris Kane, we're talking about the fight for second place because fortunately, or unfortunately, whether you Blaze, of course, it's fortunate, or for the racing purists, it's less fortunate because there's Blaze all on his own. He's going through the hip, and the others haven't even had Icon. Those 2 bikes out there, and it's now Chris that's got the advantage. I'm following you there, Spider, and making the same mistake. Yeah. So there we go. So Chris Kane down there, he's on the red machine, takes a lovely little tuck and heads through the Euromark corner. And look at that, now pulls away from that corner oh so well. So you can get that slingshot, and that's so crucial with 1-2-5. You've got to keep momentum up. These little bikes haven't got the straight out speed that you'd have from other bikes, but man, can they corner. They're a Grand Prix bike after all. Many of these, of course, they could tell some great stories of racing. They've all been imported. There's none of these that you buy off the showroom floor at your fantastic Honda or other motorcycle dealer. So they all are imported, so they all tell a racing story of where they've been in the world. These have now been taken in Moto GP racing by a class called Moto 3, so a similar size of bike and chassis, but now have the 4-stroke engine in them, the 250cc, whereas these little 125s have got some great origins, and man, we've had some great champions to watch. And Spider, if we look back over the years at seeing 125s in action, whether it's New Zealand, Australia have loved this class as well, and to see them all around the globe is some great racing. And that's exactly what we've got in New Zealand. But as you picked up, 2 of our top 5 riders have disappeared in this race, unfortunately, and that's now left it was a 3-horse race with one, this man Blaze Heaven, stretching it right out in front. We had the IMD 250, was a machine that we'd had in the past, as a 250 4-stroke in amongst the 125s, and everybody was pretty relaxed with it because it was there or thereabouts with the 125 Spider. But now that we've actually got the NSF Honda, that is actually more of a race machine, we're getting an idea of just what the technology of this Moto 3 is in the world, and that bike is bolted, the only way to politely describe it.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, mate, I'm just fascinated with these times. They say a picture says 1,000 words and never lies and that sort of thing. The fastest lap for Daniel Jenkins, okay, he's out at the moment, was a 1:41.713, just 0.02 of a second slower for his fastest lap was Chris Kane, so 0.02 of a second. I mean, they don't have tread on the tyre, but that's about a tyre tread depth, just about. That is intense racing. So right now on the track, Blaze Heaven. Then we go to Daniel Jenkins, Chris Kane. In fact, Daniel Jenkins is still on the timing.
Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah, okay, we've got to look at... okay, let's change the screens here. Blaze Heaven, Chris Kane, Zane Agate, John Medlin, Campbell Grayling, Chris Malcolm, Scott Topping in number 7 in 7th place, Brian Hardacre, Leon Jacobs, Benjamin Green. So 4 DNSs or DNFs so far in this race, so 10 still on the track. So Benjamin Green rounding up the back end on the back of the field there on number 91, but still been enjoying his racing as much. Remember, there's no first if there's no last. There's that battle for 2nd and 3rd coming out of the dipper, and it's still Chris Kane. Actually, he opened up a bit of a gap there a lap or 2 ago, but that is closed right down to about 3 or 4 bike lengths here with 1 lap to go, Neil Ritchie.
Yes, indeed, it is 1 lap to go. The white flag out from our super flag man, Brendan Green. He's a busy flag man. We've caught him at Manfield for the Suzuki Series. He went back to Christchurch to work. He then came back to Whanganui for Boxing Day. He comes back to his home here. He's just a man who's keen to help out. And it takes racecraft to be good people behind the scenes at motorcycle events, and this guy knows exactly where to follow and what's to go on. So he knows exactly what the bike looks like, because when you've got a bike doing 100 mile an hour towards you, to pick up, in fact, as they come to... Easy for us, Spider, we're up in a lovely box here, and we can have a panoramic view. So we can actually see a side number and a front number, but you're down there in the box, and all you've got is this tiny little dot coming towards you at 100 mile an hour. I certainly take my hat off to good people like Brendan out there waving the flag today, as are so many other good volunteers with Motorcycling Canterbury, your hosts here for round number 1 at Ruapuna, and a nice little dogfight going on there, Spider. It might be a little further back in the field, but every time you see 4 bikes like that as close together, those guys don't know who the race leaders. They actually don't care. All they're out to do is to beat each other, and they're awesome little racing going on. And this is what often we see in 125s is so great and positive about. See, that's somebody moving right over because they don't want to let the other rider get the advantage with the slipstream, and that in fact is our Australian visitor, Scott Topping, down there. Scott ended up in 9th place for the race yesterday, and yet here we are seeing him in 7th at the moment, so that's an improvement by 2. But he had some racecraft, as we've pointed out there, Spider, because after they come out of the Rock FM hairpin, we saw him actually sweep wide and make sure that he didn't get picked up by the other rider. But back here to our fight for 2nd, because Blaze will come through here for the 1st place. He's just coming out of the Rock FM sweeper. Brendan's got his eyes on him, he's got the checkered flag ready in his hand, and he'll do his magical wave. Hasn't got his checkered flag shorts on today, but I'm sure he's got everything else. Good on you, Brendan, and there's Blaze across. And here's this fight for 2nd place. Can we still see the man come through there at the moment? Chris Kane, Zane Agate, and the battle's on. Out of the corner they go, and sweeping wide, and again Chris doing that same thing. So he moves right over the inside. You're not going to get behind me and get the slip through, and then get the slingshot and launch past on the line. But there's about 5 or 6 bike lengths in it, and well done. Look at that as the 2 riders go down. Acknowledge they both put each other's arms out to each other. They're almost touching with their arms and doing a handshake at 80 mile an hour as they coast off the finish line. Spectacular to watch as we see the finale of that race. Great to see sportsmanship and 2 great races, and nice to talk to Zane this morning. He sold the 400. He was a a super light competitor. He's an excavator operator from North Otago, and a great man to have on Facebook because you like following him. Very positive about life and what's going on with his racing, and he's well suited to be up on a 125. So nice to see with Zane, and he's enjoyed this fact that there's now 14, you heard it, 14 GP 125 bikes that have formed part of this class. So just fantastic to see that we still enjoy this kind of racing. So well done. Courtesy of Hoogie Racing. Well, who's Hoogie Racing? Well, you're going to hear a lot of the Hoogie name here today, that's for sure. The Hoogan Bosoms, who put so much into the sport. Three great brothers, Alistair, James and Matthew, and they're all racing here as well. Of course, Bill and Diane that do so much behind the scenes, including Bill with his stewardship, but also to point out, in fact, that as well, there they are dipping their hands in their pockets and saying, we love the sport and we want to support it. And they're out there to do that by sponsoring the racing for Hoogies.
Well, I know you were going through the sponsors and that, but right now we had 3 race wins effectively for the Hoogan Bosoms. We had Al won the Superbikes, Matthew won the 600s, James won the 600s, and Matthew was the first of the buckets home yesterday. Not an official, first place in the class, but the fastest of the buckets here. So 3 wins from 3 boys.
And so that's why I said to Matthew